Good Tuesday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. A little later in the show, we will be joined by Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan, talking plenty of Browns, recapping the Texans, looking ahead to the Bears. Players have the day off, but preparation underway by the coaches, getting that game plan together to start implementing against the Bears on Sunday when they meet back in Berea tomorrow. And some news out of Berea today. Jarvis Landry, in fact, placed on the injured reserve list, means he must miss the next 3 games, minimum 3 games on the injured reserve. And the Browns activated Ifeadi Odinobo from the practice squad to the regular squad. So defensive end made 16 starts, actually 15 starts in 16 games for the Vikings a season ago. Ifeadi Odinobo, defensive end. Let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. So Mary Kay, Jarvis, in fact, going to miss the next 3 on injured reserve, and the Browns activate a young and talented defensive end.
Yeah, let's start with Jarvis. I mean, that is, it's a pretty big deal to have to be without arguably your best wide receiver for at least the next 3 games. So really unfortunate for them. That would include the Bears, the Vikings, the Chargers, 2 road games. And he means so much to Baker Mayfield. So they have to overcome this. I just wrote a column a little while ago just talking about how the young guys are really going to have to grow up fast. You've got to have Donovan Peoples-Jones, Anthony Schwartz, Demetric Felton, putting on the big boy pants and going out there and making some big plays for this football team, the kind that Jarvis Landry used to do. As far as the young defensive end, they are rolling guys through there. It's time to get some new blood up there a little bit, perhaps, and try to see what they can get rolling.
Yep, they're going to give everybody an opportunity to make an impact there. So let's move to, so Landry not there, but Odell Beckham Jr. maybe. Take a look. This was posted by Odell on his social media, saying back. So again, he posted saying, back like I never left. That's all of the rehab stuff that we've seen. That would indicate to you that he thinks he's going to be ready to go. Again, it's kind of a day-to-day thing. We'll get an update tomorrow from Kevin Stefanski. Do you expect Odell to be ready to go?
I do. Now, we've seen that hype video before, and we've seen little indications from him also that he might be back. I mean, we saw one thing he posted on social media where he showed I don't know what kind of a cat it was, but it was a cat being able to be released from his cage and things like that. So he puts these little cryptic things out there on social media that lead us one way or the other. But I do think that he has a very good chance to play. And I wrote that yesterday. I found out from a source that he has a good chance to be back on Sunday. The thing to remember is that if he is back, he will be on a pitch count to a degree. Some of it will be up to him, but I think they will also go into it knowing that you don't want him to go out there and play every single snap of the football game and then not be able to finish out the season. So I think they'll keep an eye on him.
What do you think he could mean? And again, yeah, he's not going to go from 0 to 70 or 68 snaps in a game. But what could he mean to the offense if he was able to play, 20 or 30 snaps?
Well, obviously, he's one of the best receivers in the entire NFL. So, and you can see just by looking at that hype video and what we saw throughout training camp is he looks like Odell. And that's why I thought that he was going to play in the opener. That's why the Browns thought that he was going to play in the opener because he looks that good. He looks really good. And I think he will make an impact just because of who he is. And, I'm willing to bet on the fact that Baker and Odell will flourish and thrive together this season, that they will be much better together than they have been in the past.
I would agree. And again, let's let's get to Friday and see. But things are trending like he might play. The other thing is opposite him. There's been, at times, Anthony Schwartz has played really well. Played great in the first game, made a big mistake in the second. Donovan Peoples-Jones had that fumble in the second game, played pretty well. Demetric Felton played pretty well. You kind of alluded to it. There have been flashes where these guys, first and second year players, have been outstanding. They need to be consistent, though, if they're going to play opposite Odell Beckham for the next 3 weeks, or if Odell and Jarvis are both down against the Bears.
Yeah, again, I don't know. I just suspect that Odell will be playing, but as you mentioned, if not, that was the column that I wrote. These kids are going to have to grow up fast. Even if Odell is out there, he will be on that pitch count. So you're going to have to see plenty of Donovan Peoples-Jones. You're going to see plenty of Anthony Schwartz, and you'll see Demetric Felton, who took on some of Jarvis's, slot duties and can do that. And he showed that the moment is not too big for him. The thing with these young guys, though, is the fact that, occasionally rookies are going to make mistakes. That's what rookies do. And young guys, even Donovan Peoples-Jones, this was part of what I put in my column. He was targeted only 20 times last year. Because he made both of his touchdown catches really count, and because they were flashy plays that stand out in our minds, we feel like he was involved more than he really was. But he wasn't. He was targeted 20 times. He caught 14 passes for 304 yards and 2 TDs. One of those TDs was the game winner in Cincinnati that we all remember. And another one was a 75-yard catch in Tennessee that proved to be the difference in the game. But just like Anthony Schwartz and Demetric Felton, he's still young. He's still coming up the learning curve. He was a 6th-round pick. And it's not like he got the ball an absolute ton at Michigan either. So there are certain things that defensive backs are going to try to do to these young guys. And here's the other thing to remember. They will be drawing the opponent's best defensive backs now, whereas before, you might not have gotten the top guy all the time. Now you will. So you're really going to have to be on point.
The other thing to factor in, so Baker Mayfield, had that shoulder banged up when he tried to make the tackle on the interception. The question becomes, does Kevin Stefanski have to alter his play calling to make sure he's not putting the quarterback in harm's way? How does that factor into the whole equation? Does Baker Mayfield's, shoulder, it's non-throwing, but you don't want your quarterback taking hits when he's banged up.
Well, in the Texans game, Kevin Stefanski did not know yet what was going on with that shoulder. I mean, they didn't know if there was any structural damage. They didn't know if perhaps there was any kind of a break or anything in there at that point, probably. So therefore, they had to go pretty easy on him and try to make sure that he didn't take a big hit. But I think as they move along through this week, he will feel better and better. He'll get a ton of treatment on that shoulder. And because, as I reported yesterday, there is no structural damage in terms of, any kind of a fracture or anything like that. By the end of the week, by the time they get to game day, he should be okay, I think, to the point where you can run almost your full game plan.
Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, Kay Cabot, and I going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we flip sides of the ball. We'll talk defense. Browns defense getting ready for the Bears offense. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns football with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Mary Kay, how concerning is it the way the defense is played? I mean, Kansas City is Kansas City, but the Texans were moving the ball a little bit better than I thought they might in that Week 2 game last Sunday.
You know what? It still is a bit puzzling. But when I look over the grades, the defensive grades for some of the team's best players, they're not that good. And that, I think, was one of the most surprising aspects of the game. Let's take Denzel Ward, for instance. Whether it was scheme or just his own performance, he ended up giving up 5 of 6 targets. The quarterback rating was 118.8 against him, and he finished 18th out of 19 defenders, Browns defenders, according to Pro Football Focus. He graded out in the 44 range, which is about half of what you would expect for a Denzel Ward game. He's their Pro Bowl lockdown corner, and it's just not the kind of game anybody expected in Week 2. Then you look at who came below him, and it was John Johnson, the guy that they brought in, the number 1 target that they had this offseason. He finished 19th, and he was also graded out in the 40s. So these were some performances that just were kind of surprising. Troy Hill was the 17th ranked defender. So, those were an issue. And then they did not get the pressure up front. That obviously doesn't help the back end. But the Texans hurt them with that quick passing game. Getting the ball out very, very quickly made it very difficult to get any kind of pressure. And as Myles Garrett said, they just did things that the Browns were not prepared for. So that was a little bit of a concern too.
So the other thing that concerns everybody has to concern third down conversions. For the season, opponents have converted 17 of 27 third downs. And defensive coordinators will tell you that you want to be in the 40 to 33 to 40%, and they're well over 50%. How do you improve that? What needs to improve to get that down?
Well, it's not surprising to emerge from a Kansas City game having had them convert a lot of third downs. That's to be expected. No matter what you try to do to slow down a Travis Kelce, it's probably not going to happen. And same thing for the most part with Tyreek Hill, although very surprisingly, and which should be of concern to the Browns, the Ravens were able to kind of take him out of the game. But for the most part, you would expect that the Chiefs would convert some third downs. What you don't expect is that the Texans would convert 66% in the first half and about 58% overall, including 4 for 4 on a 75-yard touchdown drive by rookie third-round pick Davis Mills in the second half of the football game that made things way, way too close at 24-21. So it's not okay. And they absolutely need to go back to the drawing board this week, dive into their third down package, and figure out, do they have the right personnel on the field, what's going wrong, and how to fix it.
So Grant Delpit made his debut. How important do you think he is to this defense? He flashed when he was out on the field.
He really did. Good for Grant. Let me just say, I've said this on this show other times, and I really mean this. I really hope that fans are pulling for guys like Grant Delpit and Greedy Williams. Both of them sat out all last season, and it was emotional. It was so difficult for them, and you just watch them work so hard to make it back onto the field. And in Grant's case, coming back from a ruptured Achilles, 26% of NFL players who suffered that injury don't make it back onto the field. So there's a decent chance that that he might not have even made it back at all. So to see him out there playing the way that he did in that game, that was pretty cool. Good for him. He's a really, really neat young man, and I know Browns fans are going to end up loving him the more that they watch him play. But as you mentioned, he flashed in that game. They have high expectations for him. They had a huge role carved out for him last year as a rookie, and they're trying to pick up where they left off with the expectations for Grant. And so far, he's showing tremendous promise.
Do you think we will see more of that 3 safety look where he is he's featured and you put a guy in the box and you kind of alternate between John Johnson III and Ronnie Harrison?
Yes, I absolutely think so. I mean, we've been hearing Joe Woods talk about that 3 safety package for a long time. He finally got a chance to dust it off and use it. and you will definitely see more of it. So it was really good to see Grant out there, and it was nice to see what that was going to look like. Now again, they're going to have to shake off the rust and come together a little bit, because they never got a chance to practice this. And I think as they move along, they will hone it, and it will get a lot better. There's a lot of new guys. There are a lot of young guys on this defense. And here's another thing to consider about this past week. Anthony Walker is the Browns' defensive signal caller. They lost Anthony to a hamstring on Friday. That did not give them very much time whatsoever to regroup. They practiced all week with him calling the defensive signals, setting the defense, making sure that everybody was in the right place, and being the coach on the field that he is. When he exits the lineup on a Friday with a hamstring, that throws everything into turmoil, especially when you're dealing with a new defense in only its second game together. So I think that had an impact as well.
Yeah, that's a valid point that we kind of forget. That's the guy that's responsible, the quarterback, if you will, of the defense. That leads me to my next question for you. Do you think, and there was not a lot of time where the new guys were on the field together during practice. Does time and more game experience playing together, does that solve the troubles of this Browns defense through the first couple of weeks of the season, do you think?
Yes, I think it does. When you look back to the offense last season, it took a while to figure out the offense. It took a while for the coaches to figure out their personnel. And I think the same thing is going on right now. It's going to take Joe Woods and the rest of the defensive staff just a little while to see how all the pieces and the parts fit together and get them working in concert. And I do think it takes time. In addition to that, as I mentioned before, you've got some guys playing for the first time in the NFL. Greg Newsome, J.O.K., Malik McDowell, Grant Delpit. I mean, that's a lot of guys. That's a lot of basically starting guys that are, just kind of learning on the job for the first time. I think as the season goes along, they will get better and better. And somewhere around mid-season, everybody's going to look up and go, oh, that's what they were talking about.
Yeah, to your point, individually, those guys look really talented, and the collective hasn't quite gotten to where you think the individual pieces fit. Mary Kay Cabot and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll get Mary Kay's thoughts about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, what his role might be moving forward. We will also talk Baker Mayfield, off to a great start. Sports4CLE will be right back, talking Browns when we return with Mary Kay Cabot.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns football with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Mary Kay, whenever Joe Woods has talked about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, he has been quick to mention, I don't want to put too much on this guy's plate early. And the fear is if you turn him into everything, he doesn't develop the way you need him to. in certain situations. What do you think JOK's role is as the Browns move forward?
Well, I mean, he's going to be the starting weak side linebacker, and he's going to have all different kinds of roles. They're going to blitz him. He's a team's best blitzer. They will use him against the run. They'll drop him into coverage, and he's going to be on the field most of the time. They have a large role carved out for him. He can play sideline to sideline. He's got great closing speed, and I think he's due for a huge role, and that will increase as the weeks go by. And I think he's one of those guys that may have suffered a little bit from Anthony Walker not being able to be out there, because Anthony is like another coach on the field. And again, when you lose him on a Friday like that, I think it really does have that ripple effect. But he's been a tremendous mentor to JOK, and he's somebody that when they're on the field together in the linebacker roles, I think he really helps JOK get lined up, know what he saw in the last play, know what's coming on the next play, and he just basically mentors him on and off the field.
Yeah, and that's kind of the MO for Anthony Walker. Past teammates talk about what a great teammate he is. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah has just a knack for blitzing, and I know that sounds kind of silly, but he finds a way to find seams, and we've seen that when they have sent him on the blitz.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I think that's going to be the thing that we see going forward, is that you will see more impact plays from these guys as they learn to work together. And I think that Joe Woods will also learn to figure out who does what well in the heat of the moment. I mean, you're starting to now see, okay, here's what Jadeveon Clowney is doing well for this team in this scheme with where he's at in his career right now. Here's what Tack can do for you. Here's what Malik McDowell is doing at this point in his career. It's going to take a while to figure some of that out. Even things like third down defense, goal line defense, all of those things are going to come together. The dime package, I mean, who should be where, when, how. It's just going to be a work in progress. And like I said, I think as they go along, they're going to get a lot better. And one of the areas where I think that they're going to really start to shine when they start playing faster and they're not thinking as much in the scheme is in terms of the takeaways. And that will make a huge difference when they start getting their hands on some footballs and punching it out and doing those sorts of things.
So we have a voicemail of truth and reason, and this one is concerning Reuben Foster, one of the young linebackers, former first-round pick that the Browns had in for a workout last Friday. Here is one of the viewers from our voicemail of truth and reason.
Hi, my name is James Seiler, and I was just wondering, has there been any word on how the workout with Reuben Foster went? I seem to recall he was a pretty vicious linebacker with San Francisco. Off-field's got him out of football, but they're taking a flyer on him maybe? Thank you very much.
So, Mary Kay, have you heard anything about how Foster went? Again, that was a former first-round pick. I think it was 31st overall, late first-rounder, linebacker out of Alabama.
Well, the thing with Reuben Foster is they really brought him in mostly to do their due diligence on him. It seemed like it had something to do with Anthony Walker's hamstring injury, but it really didn't. It was more about just kind of doing their due diligence on the player to see where he fits on their list of available linebackers. And it really wasn't necessarily something where they were going to sign him. And, now they know more about him. They know what he looks like and how he is physically right now. So he is there at the ready if they need him. But I don't think it's not something that's front burner.
Okay, fair enough. And again, he's coming off, he had a pretty significant knee injury with Washington after his time with 49ers. So he is working through trying to get back to full go. Let's take a look at this tweet. Baker Mayfield's stats through the first couple of weeks. Best completion percentage in the NFL at over 81%. His passer rating is almost 102, his best ever. Throwing for a career high 267 yards per game, and also his best yards per attempt in almost 11. Mary Kay, what do you think about the way Baker has played in the first couple weeks. I know there have been a couple of turnovers at inopportune times, and might not have made some plays late in the game against Kansas City, but overall, he's looked pretty good.
Yeah, he's looked pretty good. I mean, I actually do put a lot of weight on throwing an interception in the 2-minute drill when you have a chance to pull the game out. So I have to ding him a little bit for that because, they were ahead in that game and they had a chance to pull it out in the end. And of course, Jamie Gillen's snafu on the punt was absolutely huge and pretty much cost them the game for the most part. But the ball went back into Baker Mayfield's hands, and he did end up, throwing that pick on that in the 2-minute drill. So I've got to knock him down a peg just for that. But everything else has looked really, really good. He's on point. He's accurate. He's making really good decisions, and he's going to the right place with the football. And so, yeah, for the most part, I think he's having a really nice season, and we're seeing some of that growth that we expected to see.
Yeah. So the question was put to Kareem Hunt. If the Browns need to lean more on him and Nick Chubb, are they ready? Here's Kareem Hunt.
I mean, whatever it takes. I mean, we got some other great receivers in there too, so those guys can make plays. And yeah, I mean, whatever it takes to win. If they call our number more, then we'll be ready. We know what we're capable of doing, running the football, and we just got to come out there and make it happen when the team needs us. And definitely, we needed a touchdown and a good drive. And Coach Kevin does a great job of calling plays.
And that's the thing, Mary Kay. We've talked about the options. So when you don't have Jarvis Landry, there's some options. If Odell isn't there, there's some options. It is a depth league, and the Browns are going to need some of that depth on offense right now.
Yeah, I've often said that this is a pick your poison offense. And even if you don't have Jarvis, and even if you don't have Odell Beckham Jr., you still have a lot of places to go with the football. You do have those young guys, so they're going to have to try not to make mistakes in the event that Odell's not out there. But you've got 3 really good tight ends that can catch passes for you. And the guy we just talked to there, Kareem Hunt. I mean, he led the Browns with 5 touchdown catches last season. He had 7 in 2018. And he caught about 53 passes for 455 yards for the Chiefs as a rookie. So this is a player who can play in the slot. He can split out wide. He can catch it out of the backfield. He can be a big part of your passing game as well. So I think they have so many weapons that they can be creative with, even without Jarvis and even without Odell. They still have speed. They still have the option to do trick plays and things like that. Now, obviously, you want your 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers back in there. But if they don't have them, it's not time, to cry about it. It's time to figure out how to use the rest of these weapons effectively.
And a lot of what you say about Kareem Hunt, you could say the same thing about Demetric Felton. You can line them up in the backfield. You can line them up in the slot. There were times when they were on the field together, and I would imagine that gives you the opportunity to get one of them on a matchup that you like, that doesn't work for the defense.
Yeah, I had been saying that in over the summer when we were doing our podcasts. I had been talking about saying that I wanted to see Kareem Hunt and Demetric Felton on the field together because when you have those 2 guys on the field, you don't know if it's going to be a run or a pass, and you could do some really cool things with them. And I talked about that a lot over the summer, and some people gave me a little pushback on that, like thinking, oh, I don't think that's going to happen. You can't even get, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb on the field together. But you have to look at the dynamics of what different players bring to the table. And Kareem Hunt and Demetric Felton give you the opportunity to really confuse the defense on run versus pass, which is basically the fundamental building block of Kevin Stefanski's offense.
Before we go to break, you mentioned, the speed that they still have. So imagine this, if, Jarvis Landry now on IR, so you put Odell Beckham Jr., if he's available to go on one side, and you put Anthony Schwartz on the other. That's a pretty good start to a world-class relay team as far as speed goes.
Yes, absolutely. And, when I thought that Odell was going to play in Kansas City, I wrote a column just talking about that they could give the Chiefs a taste of their own medicine, which was a double dose of the lethal speed. Well, we didn't get to see it in Kansas City, and we didn't see it against the Texans, but there is a chance that it could happen at First Energy Stadium against the Bears on Sunday. You could have those two guys on the field, and they will be together on the field. It's going to happen. And you can get them behind the defense, and you can make some very big plays that way, and I believe they will.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for The Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, some power rankings we will take a look at, plus the challenges that the Bears present. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Continue talking Browns football with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for The Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Pete Prisco, power rankings from CBSSports.com. Buccaneers 1, 49ers 2, Rams 3, Cardinals 4. So 4 NFC teams, top 4. Chiefs 5, Bills 6, Raiders 8, Ravens 9, and the Browns 10. They found a way against the Texans, but it was clunky at times. They were in a close game until Tyrod Taylor went out. Losing Jarvis Landry for a bit will hurt the offense. So Mary Kay Cabot, Browns still top 10, which would make them a playoff team. I guess that's fair enough after the Texans game. I wouldn't get too crazy about it. They really haven't played well, but that's okay. It's September.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, as we've mentioned so many times, I think that the defense is a work in progress. Remember, they did not even practice together in training camp, this defense, and they certainly didn't play together at all in a preseason game. And for anybody to expect that it was going to be a well-oiled machine early on in the season had to be fooling themselves. Even though it's full of talent, you still have to learn to play together, and you still have to figure things out. So I think that is, I think that's just a huge issue right now. But I think 10 is probably about right for what we've seen so far. One thing that came to mind is that Tyrann Mathieu did not play in that Kansas City Chiefs game. We all saw what he did the other night to the Baltimore Ravens. And I think people had to, Browns fans probably had to thank their lucky stars that Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark did not play in that game. Now, again, the Browns didn't have Odell Beckham Jr., but Tyrann Mathieu is a game changer. And, who knows? It may have been a little bit of a longer afternoon had he been in the game.
Yeah, fair enough. He's one of the best safeties in football, without question. So, what challenges do you think the Browns face when they look and take a look at the Bears Sunday, First Energy Stadium, trying to get to 2-1?
Well, first of all, it's a tough, stout defense, and they intercepted Joe Burrow 3 times. So I think that's the first thing that you kind of have to look at, especially, again, when you're going to be dealing with a lot of younger receivers and more inexperienced players. More veteran DBs are going to try to force them into mistakes. So that's one thing to be on the lookout for, is picks and takeaways like that from an opportunistic defense. On the offensive side of the ball, I mean, it could be Justin Fields. Andy Dalton got injured in that game, and this could be the debut of Justin Fields.
When you look at Fields, there have been instances when you look at what he's done. He has a little bit of challenge identifying some of the fronts and the rushes. He's taken some big hits, I guess, because he doesn't have the protection ironed out. If it is Justin Fields, athletic as all get out, everybody knows that from the Ohio State days. Do they try to get after him because of the pressure and the issues that he's had, kind of identifying where pressure's coming from? He's taking some big hits.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely, 100%. You're going to try to cross up and confuse a rookie as much as you possibly can. You're going to have to rely on Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney to really disrupt him, get him off of his mark. Same thing with Takk McKinley, who had been showing an absolute ton of speed off the edge. We didn't see as much as we thought we would see against the Texans in that regard. But that will be definitely a focus, is to show multiple fronts, different people, roll people in and out, move Myles Garrett around, and just try to confuse the rookie as much as you possibly can.
So Matt Nagy came out yesterday and said, if Andy Dalton is healthy, he's our quarterback. That's still a big if. It was a bulky knee that forced him out against the Bengals. Old Browns regime was familiar with Andy Dalton. What type of problems does Andy Dalton present that would be different from Justin Fields?
Well, he's a savvy veteran. He's so experienced. The game has slowed down for him. So he will know that he has to get the ball out of his hand very, very quickly to avoid the on-rushing Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, Takk, and those guys. And, he'll be ready for that. He sees the field so much better. I mean, the game is pretty slow for him. But the game won't be slow for him if he's got a gimpy knee. I mean, if you can't get away from Myles, then you're going to be putting yourself in harm's way. So this will be a big decision for them, and I would imagine that they will try to keep the Browns guessing as long as they can.
When you look at it, what are some keys for the Browns? This is a team that the Browns are probably more talented than the Bears. Bears, I would say, are somewhere between the Chiefs and the Texans, probably closer to the Texans than the Chiefs. But what are some of the keys for the Browns?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to protect the football. I mean, you just have to protect the football. And again, 2 of the turnovers last week involved those young players, Donovan Peoples-Jones, who had the ball knocked out with a helmet on the ball after a 15-yard catch, and then Anthony Schwartz, who kind of stopped on his route there. And as Baker Mayfield said after the game, we've got to stop hurting ourselves. And that's true. They've got to really make sure that they're not turning it over. That is the number one determining factor of victory, is winning the takeaway battle. If they're playing against Justin Fields, as we mentioned before, you've just got to cross him up in every single possible way that you can, with as much pressure as you can, and blitzing. Send JOK. Send Malcolm Smith or Mac Wilson or John Johnson or Grant Delpit. I would blitz those guys. You saw what Grant Delpit was able to do on a safety blitz. So I think that you would want to bring pressure from unexpected places. And then, you just have such an amazing two-headed monster that no matter what is going on your football team, with Jarvis out and Odell Beckham Jr., maybe being on a pitch count or whatever, you've got Nick and Kareem and that offensive line. And when all else fails, you can just pound the rock with those guys, especially into the second half. And I think that will also be key.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Mary Kay, as always, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you read her in the pages of the Plain Dealer as well as on cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue to talk Browns football. Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan will join us. Sports for CLE. He'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Sports for CLE continues. We continue talking Browns football. Emmanuel Acho was talking on Speak for Yourself on Fox Sports about Baker Mayfield and what he's seen so far.
Of all the national media members, maybe me and Orlovsky ride harder for Baker Mayfield than anybody else. I do it with, Colin's show preceding ours and some of the Baker slander that just kind of infiltrates and migrates over to this set. I shake off the Baker slander.
Dog, stay slim on him. Stay on him.
Baker, that dude.
Don't do that.
But as it stands right now, I need to see more from Baker if I am going to believe that they are going to go far. Can I go to the big board?
You gotta go to the big board. I just saw you get skinny.
Can we go to the big board?
Get skinny up there.
Let me go to the big board, man. Y'all know we gotta go. Let me just break this down for y'all, big dogs. I look at the AFC in tiers. I'm only going to talk about two tiers because I'm only going to talk about the good teams, the really competent teams. And let's start last year. Last year we knew what it was. The Chiefs, head and shoulders above everybody else, and they was up there with your Bills. Your Bills was doing their thing last year.
Right.
But outside of that, Steelers, Browns, Ravens, Titans, Colts. For me, it was any given Sunday, really, with them dogs. That whole second tier, they were going to fight each other. But we knew who the top tier was. Okay, this year, Baker, can you get into that top tier for me? Please, can you please? And I just don't see it, Sel. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, I think they jumped up, you know what I'm saying, trying to get into that top tier. I understand they lost to the Raiders, which is why I put the Raiders now in the second tier. Man, I had to get the Colts up out of there. But the Titans, Steelers, Browns, Bills, now, to me, they're in that second tier. Until Baker can do like Lamar and get his team into that next tier, I just don't see the Browns being able to get to a Super Bowl. Can they win a playoff game? Yes. Can they get to an AFC Championship game? Maybe. But I'm going back to the desk because I don't see it.
All right, let's bring in Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. And Mac, the curve on that's pretty steep. It's a grading curve because he's talking about getting to the Super Bowl. So when you put it in that context, I get where he's going. We need to see some of the late game stuff from Baker, and we need to see it against better teams.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Dave. And I look at with Baker specifically, you can lean on the running game, and that's where a lot of these national pundits will kind of lean towards and really look at. Obviously, you have Kareem Hunt, you have Nick Chubb. So, I mean, there's no reason not to. But at the same time, when it comes to Baker Mayfield, you do need to see a little bit when it comes to that. And look, you know this as well as anybody when it comes to me. I love Baker, and I love his game specifically. But, he does need to, maybe take it up to that next level. But at the same time, too, you need to see more from the wide receivers, too. I understand Jarvis, he ended up getting hurt. You're going to have Odell coming back this week, probably, it looks like. But at the same time, you need to see more out of those receivers in the receiving game. But, yeah, I do think that Baker needs to take his game up a notch there. You saw it in week 1 against Kansas City. Outside of that last drive, I thought that he really looked excellent, really put himself in that upper echelon of quarterbacks. But at the same time, you do need to see that down the stretch. I think that is a fair criticism for him as of right now. And the one difference that I would say between him and Lamar, where, Emmanuel Acho was bringing up how, Baker needs to take his game to that Lamar level. Lamar, at least, he has that dual threat where even when his arm isn't necessarily at his best, and really it was in that game against Kansas City, but even when it's not, you still have to worry about the ground game when it comes to him and him having to take off. Baker has that a little bit, but he obviously nowhere near the level that we see from a Lamar Jackson. So I look at Baker Mayfield. Is it a fair criticism to say that he needs to take his game to that next level? Yes. But at the same time, I also think that it's a little unfair comparing him to the Pat Mahomes and comparing him to Lamar Jackson when they have that added mobility in their game compared to Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is, give him some more opportunities. Let's see. I would not discount Baker Mayfield based on what I've seen so far this year. I think he's poised to take the step that all Browns fans and the local folks seem to think he's on track to do as well. All right, Texans game was it was not great. What are your thoughts on the Browns' 10-point win over the Texans?
Yeah, for a 10-point win, it really did feel underwhelming. And as underwhelming, I guess, as you can say. But to be honest, I think that this is a part where, I hate to put it like this, but the Browns played down to their competition. And it's the first time that we've been able to say that in a while. But, for the Browns, they kind of played down to where, the Texans, they were methodical on offense. They were playing well. And, overall, I thought that the Texans were able to execute pretty well overall. The one thing that I will say is that, defensively, I need to see a little bit of growth from week to week. Not every defense is a one-size-fits-all, especially going week to week, going from Pat Mahomes and that offense to going into this week against Houston, excuse me. I think that the Browns need to grow when it comes to, adding in those guys on defense. But I also think that will also come with time because you do have all of those new personnel that you have coming on defense. So, I think that's that next step that they need to take. But offensively, I will say I liked what I saw for the most part. They started off slow, but, oddly enough, it was kind of a script that was flipped from what we had seen previously where, a lot of times the Browns started off quickly, but in the second half, they kind of dwindle off a little bit. This time, the Browns started off slow. Obviously, you had the interception by Baker, the misrun route by Anthony Schwartz. And then you had the injury as well. So, it was a little bit of a sluggish start. But at the same time, they were able to tighten that up by the end of the game. For the Browns, it's all about putting together that complete game that I look at for this team. Because, again, you have the talent to be able to do it. I just need them to be able to show that, week in and week out before we can go ahead and, anoint them with the way this offense has performed. I need to see a full game performance on both sides of the ball.
All right, let's take a look at ESPN.com's power rankings. This is after this week. So Buccaneers 1, Rams 2. Rams move up. Chiefs 3, 49ers 4, Bills, Seahawks, Cardinals 7. Browns check in at 8, just ahead of the Ravens and the Raiders. And again, Mac, 8 to 10, I can't argue with that as far as the Browns, the way they've played the first couple weeks.
Yeah, and I tend to agree there because, again, the Rams, they've looked pretty good overall. You mentioned the Cardinals in there as well. I look at the way this Browns team has performed. I think like I said, I think they played down in their competition, so them falling a little bit in the rankings makes sense. The Cardinals just had a massive win against the Minnesota Vikings, and Seahawks just had another massive win as well. So, I look at the way that this season has played out so far for the Browns. Seeing them fall a little bit to 8, it makes sense. I think that they'll end up being up a little bit higher. The only one that I might have a little bit of an issue with is Kansas City being down at 3. I think that, they control the game for the most part. Them maybe falling one spot, okay, I guess I can give you that. But, that's the only issue that I take with it. The Browns sitting at 8, though, just ahead of the Ravens, I actually would agree with. Even though the Ravens just had an impressive win. Again, I think that the Raiders' loss says more about the Ravens than it does about the Raiders. And vice versa when it comes to the Raiders' win against Pittsburgh. I think it says more about the Steelers than it does about the Raiders going forward.
Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Joe Thomas thoughts on the Browns game against the Texans. That's straight ahead when Sports for CLE returns. Stay.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns with Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. So former Browns left tackle Joe Thomas, his thoughts on the Browns-Texans game. This is from The Herd on Fox Sports.
They had a lot of adversity early on in the game, right? Jarvis Landry gets hurt. Baker Mayfield, it hurts his shoulder. They're in a closer game than they expected. When Jarvis went down, it kind of took the life out of that team a little bit. But the thing that I was excited about is they were able to overcome that adversity. They didn't allow that to become the story of the game where all of a sudden you lose a game that you're supposed to win. And like you mentioned, as a good team, which I think the Browns are a good team right now, you've got to win those Houston Texans, those games against the teams that are on your schedule that are set up to be an automatic W. The things that I didn't like, obviously, you shouldn't be playing the Texans that close. I don't care if your emotional leader on offense gets injured early in the game. You got to be able to find that life and that energy, no matter if it's under the lights on Sunday Night Football, no matter if it's against the Chiefs or the Ravens, or if it's a team like the Jaguars or the Texans that you feel like you're better than. Like, they need to be able to find a way to get up and play the same no matter who's on the schedule.
And Mac, that goes to your point. They might have played down to their competition, and that's something you got to guard against if you're a good team, which the Browns expect to be a good team.
Yeah, and especially, too, he was spot on where, at least they faced some adversity. You didn't expect it to be against the Houston Texans, but at the same time, take it where you can get it. And the fact that they were able to respond well. Obviously, like he mentioned, Jarvis Landry going down, that was a huge talking point that Baker Mayfield had following the game where, it did seem like the team was a little bit let down once he got hurt and he was taken out of the ball game. At that point, all of a sudden now you're having to overcome that. You're having to rally the troops at that point. So, again, yeah. So I think that to his point, I think that The Browns, they don't want to be playing down to that competition. They don't want to be letting them into these games. But on top of that, you'll take the fact that, yes, they were in that game and they were still able to pull out the victory. So definitely a positive to take away from this week, though.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Joe Woods' defense. What do you think of it, and what do you want to see from it?
Oh, boy. Okay. So when it came to Joe Woods' defense, I will say this. I tweeted after week 1 that if people were tweeting about, getting rid of him and firing him after one game, I just didn't think that was a smart way to go. But, however, you started to see the same things, maybe a lack of creativity when it came to pass rush. You saw some of that with Grant Delpit at the end of the game. But at the same time, a lot of zone coverage, some man, but not as much aggressiveness on defense. If that kind of continues and that kind of snowballs, and especially the ineffectiveness on third down, if that continues throughout the season, yeah, you're going to start to be making more and more of a case for getting rid of Joe Woods at that point. But, again, I look at this defense. You have all of this talent, and especially when you look at the way that defenses in the past have taken time to gel. Again, we talk about all these new faces, all these new players. Grant Delpit, he hasn't really played a significant amount of snaps since he got hurt last year. So, this is him kind of getting adjusted to not only getting back to playing at the NFL speed, but also getting used to new teammates. He really didn't play in his rookie season, or he didn't play in his rookie season because he was hurt. So, again, you're having these guys getting used to playing with each other, and on top of that, having the coaches getting used to having these players available. So, I saw it with what I saw from Joe Woods' defense. I have concerns, and I look at the way that this defense will be going forward. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that, because if they don't show any growth or really show the same signs of, ineffectiveness on third down, lack of creativity when it comes to pass rush, all of a sudden then, yeah, you're going to start to see more and more of a case where Joe Woods possibly could get let go at the end of the season, or, if it continues to spiral, possibly during the season. So, again, I look at the way that this defense played on Sunday. I was not happy with it, but at the same time, I want to see how they grow and how they progress as the season goes on.
Yeah, the concerning thing is I thought the line would get more pressure, and it just hasn't been there. It's one thing against Patrick Mahomes, and I know Tyrod Taylor is athletic and all that. He doesn't scare me like Patrick Mahomes does. And then you didn't get pressure really on Davis Mills either, who's a rookie.
Right, and that was my biggest thought going into the game. I thought the Browns should be able to create a lot of pressure along that offensive line, which, again, I know you got Laramie Tunsil. You have Titus Howard on there as well, but, a relatively inexperienced offensive line. I thought that Clowney, he had that hit at the end of the game, but outside of that, I thought that overall they would be able to generate a lot more pass rush than they really showed on Sunday. And, that was the one thing, is that whether it be getting creative with, cornerback blitzes or safety blitzes like we saw with Grant Delpit at the end of the game, overall, I think that you need to have a little bit more creativity to, free up some of those guys to generate that pressure, so that Davis Mills, all of a sudden that internal time clock starts going off, even when he isn't necessarily getting pressured. That causes more of that confusion that you see week in and week out for some of these younger quarterbacks. So you got to see some of that, at least from week to week, from Joe Woods. And I'd like to see more of that, quite frankly. So that's the one thing. I just need to see more growth overall from this team and from this defense.
Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. As always, Mac, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thank you guys for having me. Always appreciate it.
All right, Mac Robinson. Make sure you listen to him, 92.3 The Fan. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. We'll see you again tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guests, Jeff Phelps from 92.3 The Fan and Tim Bielek, reporter for The Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. That is tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. We will see you tomorrow on Sports4CLE.